Hello again. Welcome back to Rambling Reviews. Dan here, just to have a little quick chat with you all about the episode, The Chrome Car. Another great episode. It's weird actually because I've been thinking about like why these have been even more rambly than I anticipated them to be. And obviously, we called this Rambling Reviews. I knew it was just going to be me spilling my thoughts, and they weren't going to be very polished or coherent, or even very focused, which they've definitely not been focused. No, I can make as many notes on an episode as I want. I'm still going to potentially say contradictory things or things while I'm just trying to sort my thoughts out, because that's what these are, because I usually have very recently watched the episode. There's only one example, I think, so far, where there was a pretty reasonable gap between watching the episode and recording. Most of these, it's like I watch the episode, and then I make the notes. I go back through it, making notes, and then I hit record. And the notes are only just so I don't miss any like obvious details or, get any element of it mixed up or say something dumb on here that's clearly clarified in the episode that I missed on my first viewing for whatever reason. I'm easily distracted. This one. I mean, the other thing is I will say about these, sorry, that's what I was going to say. See, I've already gone off track. The point I was going to make was, despite them intentionally being rambling reviews, they've been more rambly than even I anticipated. And I think that's because, in terms of reviewing these episodes, it's really hard because they're just good and they're consistently good. And a good thing I say about a previous episode is true of all of the episodes. Only one of them felt slightly weaker than the others. And even now on reflection, like, we're talking 0.0 something of a percent, like it really, because it just didn't add anything to the overall mythos that hadn't been added in a previous episode, because it does obviously clarify again number shifting when she has these personal revelations or whatever. That's in reference to the Crystal Car episode. So yeah, that's where I'm at in terms of like I'm just really enjoying it. It's a great show, and again, we've talked about this on Nothing But Static, completely separate to anything animated or even, and when especially completely separate to anything Infinity Train related. But I just want to make a point that one thing I always say about shows is I love it so much when the character stuff and the actual plot and narrative and mythology all interweave. That's truly when a show is firing on all cylinders. And what's been great about this show is we've been exploring Tulip as a character step by step through the events that are happening to her. It's not like two separate things. Oh, here's what's happening to the character, and every now and then she stops to have a think about this. No, it's that they're one and the same. And you're probably thinking, well, surely that's true of every show, Dan. It really isn't. I promise you. You look at some of these TV, like just go look at any. Well, not any, but like look at. I guarantee you, at least 25 to 40% of the shows you watch do that, where the actual plot of the week is actually nothing to do with what's pushing the character forward, or isn't directly correlated to it. So they're happening because there's a difference between them happening concurrently and them happening as a result of each other. Does that make sense? So yes, a character can be growing during the events of an action movie. Like as good as Die Hard is, the events of that movie aren't really that related to John McClane growing as a person, so it's and that's fine. You can get away with it sometimes, I think. But what's been great about this show is like episodes like this where it seems like it's just going to be a little adventure-y one. This is the Chromecast. This is the episode. I'll very quick recap. This is the episode where Tulip steps into the car and it's full of mirrors, and there's a mirror her in the reflection that's behaving differently and is actually able to talk to her and is moving independently of her, not directly copying her, and she says that she can open the door to get out the other side, but she's got to swap places. They swap places, and she immediately decides she's going to betray Tulip. Or she already probably had decided that, actually. She immediately betrays Tulip and tries to leave. But the mirror version of 1-1 has called the Mirror Police, and their job is to keep mirror reflections in line, because if they're not going to fulfill their only purpose, which is to reflect the person, then what is their purpose? Which is quite a dark idea, the idea that these beings exist only to reflect us, but they're actually, as demonstrated in Tulip, are their own people, and it's kind of like quite haunting, really, to think about. So Tulip's one is a rebel, and she's gone off on separately, but like, are all the other ones reflections, just like desperate to live their own lives, but it's a whole complicated thing. We'll come back to that maybe in a little bit. But basically, the plot revolves around her eventually being trying to betray Tulip, but then they have this conversation, and this is what my point was earlier, which is getting to like, so you just think it's going to be this rompy episode about this switch over, and and the mirror her is like, it's the reverse you, so it's evil, how dare she doesn't like onions, like, and gotta get her back because she's tricked us, so I can be free again, because Tulip is trapped in the mirror world now. But what it ends up being is like the mirror Tulip tries to escape, and Tulip Prime, as she's described in this episode, is ends up sort of comforting her, because mirror Tulip discovers she can't leave the car without a mirror, a reflective surface, and there are no reflective surfaces between the cars. She can't actually escape. She's escaped the mirror world, but she's not actually able to go any further than that. Our Tulip says that, she can help her, but she says, it's not like you ask for help, ever. And it becomes this really interesting thing where, obviously, her reflection knows her better than anyone, and has observed everything she's done, and talks in great detail. And I think, once again, we're understanding Tulip a lot more as we go. In the wake of the divorce, ignoring texts from her friends, not maybe responding when her mum calls her up for, calls her for food, or just shouts up to see if she's okay, I guess. Even, I don't know. Either way, she's been kind of ignoring her and sort of retreating a little bit, which is a slight contrast to the Tulip we saw in the opening episode, because I said I found her a little bit... It's funny, because the first episode went up today of this onto the YouTube channel, and the first 3 comments were all commenting on how Tulip's unlikability is kind of intentional. She's just had a divorce. She's not, but that's... Yeah, okay. They've just had a divorce in the first episode. That is said out loud. It's part of the established plot, but the trauma of that and how that's affected her is not really truly clear until later in this show, like the Cat's Car episode and this one and a few of the others. So her abrasiveness in that first episode, it wasn't particularly likable. It wasn't, and I stand by that. But as you watch more, you realize that's kind of by design, because what it seems like they're doing is they're establishing Tulip as being somebody who's a lot more damaged from the divorce than you necessarily might think. In the first episode, she seems grumpy about it, but she seems grumpy in a snotty teen way that they're grumpy about everything, to be honest. Yeah, I don't think not all kids react badly to divorce. Some kids, if it's been a really rough time having their parents in the same house as them, are relieved by divorce. So I don't think, because there was a divorce in the home, I don't think it was fair for me to assume immediately that she was traumatized by it, upset by it, frustrated by it, for sure. That's evident in just the context of the first episode. But that's all there is on show in that first episode, that she's not happy about the situation, practically speaking, because neither of her parents are actually able to take her to this coding camp. You don't realize how that divorce has particularly emotionally affected her. And I'm not saying there are not hundreds of thousands of kids, obviously, that are heavily emotionally affected by by divorces, but there are some kids in homes where their parents don't get on so much that they're almost relieved by it. It's like, okay, this is the right thing for everyone. Everyone will be happier if these people split up, as sad as that is. So I didn't assume that in the first episode necessarily, but I love that the show has sort of, it's making me reevaluate the Tulip I saw in the first episode, because I'm going, okay, I do get it now. I think it's by design. I think it's absolutely by design that she came across kind of abrasive in the first episode. Someone else in the comments actually made a really interesting point. They said something like, other kids will be able to relate to that sort of irrational anger at the parent for stuff that's out of their control, because a lot of kids go through that. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I think Tulip's a really interesting character for younger audiences to grasp onto. So what I like about this episode, and I'm trying to keep this one a little more focused, although I'm struggling because I never can keep these things focused. Oh, I'm terrible at it. But what I love is just using the practical, fun, adventure-y plot of the premise of the show, of it, going into car after car, and there's a new adventure in each one, and how do we solve this problem? Oh, she's been swapped by the mirror person. It becomes this exploration of her character again, and again, yet another hint at how damaged she may have been by that divorce. And how much that will have upheaved her. The idea that it's hard to imagine this Tulip having retreated into her room, ignored her friend's texts, but she's growing a lot in this across this train, and I think I have now decided for sure that the number represents her growth, and I think hitting 0 is free from the train. I think that's getting out. She's done a lot of growing since we last saw that number. I think even choosing to ignore the number was a part of her growth and learning to accept that there's things she can't change. She can't change that number. What a great reflection of her actual situation. She's never had control of that number, the same way she doesn't control that her parents split up, and maybe learning to deal with and ignore the number was a real reflection of her accepting that she had no ability to change her parents. And this is a theme that came up in the last episode as well, the 1-1 episode. So I'm really enjoying the way her character is growing, and I like that the Mirror Tulip in this episode. For those who don't remember, this episode ends with the Mirror Tulip convincing our Tulip that the number doesn't matter. It doesn't define her. It doesn't. She can just look. It's fine. It doesn't. It won't. It can't. It's you know. It doesn't have power over her. So she takes the glove off and she sees it's 3, which I thought was a nice touch because there are 3 episodes left. So I'm assuming 1 number per episode, or I don't know. I honestly don't know. Yeah, I assume 0 means going home, and I'm assuming now that the train is. I'm still not sure if the train is of her design, like her psyche's design. She's like trapped in a mental, psychic, crazy prison or something, or if it's a physical place that exists in an alternate dimension that just sucks kids in general into it. Also worth noting, by the way, I forgot to mention this, in the cat car episode I talked about how there were 6 tapes. There were more than 6. There were another 3 or 4 on the side, that she didn't knock over, that I didn't notice the first time. I thought she knocked every tape clean off the shelf. She knocked 6 off the shelf, and there were still 3 or 4 left on the shelf. And then obviously there's the one she grabbed towards the end, which I'm still not sure what that was. I still suspect possibly her own. She might have been a person that's come. So it depends. It depends on what the outcome is. If it's all sort of Tulip created and it's all in her mind and it's all related directly to her, which it does seem to be, but I'm starting to lean less. There's more and more evidence piling up that that's not the case. Because if I'm right that the number is she gets to 0 and she's free, you could argue that many kids might pass through this, and this train is really like a way of them. The train sort of like pushes them into healing, basically, forces them. I mean, putting her in a room where the only way she was going to get out was by interacting with her mirror self. That feels deliberate. That feels very much like the train went, "Hey, I know what you need right now." So yeah, it all feels very designed. I mean, except for the fact that last week, obviously, I still suspect 1-1 is some sort of malfunction of the train and it's not behaving as he's supposed to be. I've for those who aren't keeping track of my ever shifting theories on this, I no longer believe 1-1 is the conductor, and I don't think the cat is the conductor either. I'm starting to suspect maybe Atticus, only on the basis that otherwise I'm starting to think, why is Atticus on this journey? Like, he's not had an episode, he's not had a plot, he's literally just made snippy comments a couple times and made dog jokes every episode. And as much as I love the dog jokes, they are always good. Like this week it was him barking at his own reflection. Awesome. Just love it. I don't know what else, I don't know what they're doing with this character. I don't know what Atticus exists for. So it's crossed my mind that Atticus may be the conductor. Maybe. What was I getting at? Sorry, that was really a tangent within a tangent, wasn't it? Where was I? I'm trying to backtrack my thoughts to where I was before I took that tangent. Oh yeah, it's just in general. I don't think 1-1 is the conductor anymore. I think 1-1 is a cog of this machine for sure that has malfunctioned in some way, and I think that's why the steward wants 1-1 back. Although I don't know why the steward keeps sending the cat rather than just going after him herself. She ran from 1-1, so which was the impetus between. Oh, maybe I misread that. Maybe that was just her escaping because I don't know. She'd been really violent up until that point. Yeah, I'm sticking with that. She ran from 1-1, so that's weird. If she wants 1-1 so bad, and that's why she keeps sending the cat after him, why did she just grab him herself? I don't know. Yeah, shrug. There's so many things I still don't understand. I'm trying to understand them. It feels a bit like a waste of breath at this point. I think I'm going to stop pushing so hard to theorize and figure it out. Just enjoy it instead. So yeah, this episode's great. This episode is really good. I mean, it's just to clarify a few little details I noted. I loved that they came out of a jelly bean car right up top. I loved that Atticus was once again the voice of caution. That's the second time that something has come up and Atticus has been like, "Are you sure this is the one thing this is the thing you want to do right now?" He did it again in the he like, what was it? It was the tapes. It was the tapes. He didn't want her to watch the tape either in the Cat's Car episode. So he's always like, let's be cautious here. I like that he's got a very cautious approach to things, and I like that he's always that voice in her head. But he isn't getting an episode of his own, which is either both. Well, depending on that, if he's the conductor, that makes sense, and if he isn't, then it's frustrating me. I love the first thing that Tulip says to Mirror Tulip when Mirror, just the Mirror person. She's not Tulip. That she makes that very clear. We'll talk about her in a second. That, you know, she isn't going to suck me into a loop of. It isn't going to suck me into a loop of my own memories, is it? Like, she's still worried about that happening to her again because she's been through that. I thought that was good. I did think it was a little obvious she was going to betray Tulip, but that's fine. I like that when she first switches around, 1-1 refers to her as old/former Tulip. But that's where we have the moment where the new Tulip, Mirror Tulip, says, you know, she can be called Tulip. That's not my name. I'm my own person. Which, by the way, I think is a real clear sign she's coming back. I think if that character was never coming back again, and it was just like a fun rompy episode where at the end the characters were separated to be part, you know, to never be seen again, you wouldn't have left something open like that. You'd have given her a name. She'd have chosen one at the end. Like, I'm going to be called Pencil, or I don't know, something. And that's not random, by the way. There's a bit at the end where they go into this pencil car, and our Tulip hates it, but she loves it. Our Tulip thinks it's boring, and she thinks it's the most exciting thing ever. And I think that's a really interesting idea. That your mirror reflections are all like almost like the opposite of you. Like the mirror Atticus is kind of a coward, and the mirror 1-1 is like very orderly and very what's the word I'm looking for? Very sort of like matter of fact and robotic, I suppose. Which made me wonder: is that how 1-1 is supposed to be? So 1-1 is broken, so the mirror 1-1 is orderly and like a robot, and then if 1-1 was functioning correctly on our side, would the mirror him have been like our 1-1? That's a thought I had watching it. I love the mirror police and the mirror ambulance. I thought that was just such a neat idea. I think the ambulance drives in, puts 1-1 and Atticus, mirror 1-1 and mirror Atticus onto the stretchers, puts a little blanket around them, gives them a cup of cocoa or whatever, and like drives them away. I thought that was great. I liked that the mirror police, the way they described it. You know, I thought that was really, you know, how did they say it? They said it. She exists to reflect your existence, and if she isn't serving that purpose, we'll make sure she doesn't exist at all. Again, very dark. They called her a sliver, which actually they said get it, and I actually didn't get it, and still don't get it, and I'm too scared to Google it because I don't want to find out spoilers. But I genuinely didn't get that. They called her a sliver. Yeah, I don't know what the purpose of that, what the joke is there. But I found it really interesting that they talked about her that way. I think it's quite a dark idea, isn't it? Again, these beings are sort of trapped as your reflections. Like, yeah, it's pretty creepy. And also, my other question now is: does Tulip get a new reflection? So next time she looks in a mirror and like sees herself, is that a new replacement mirror Tulip? Like, will she need saving too? I don't know. I suppose she could have no reflection at all, but I don't feel like they go that way, because otherwise, how is she going to explain that forever? So, I mean, like, if this show ends and she gets off the train and she's back in the road, but she just doesn't have a reflection anymore, at some point she's going to be dissected by scientists for being somehow able to bend a light in a way that isn't possible. So, yeah. I mean, I know it's a kid's cartoon, they probably have thought that through, but I don't feel like they'll go that route. I feel like it's more likely she'll get a new reflection, but then that raises questions in itself. I think it's likely they just won't address it. She'll just have a new reflection, and that'll be the assumption. But we'll see. That's really interesting as well. I did like that she was literally the opposite, though, of our Tulip, that she didn't like coding or onions. which again makes it even darker if they're the opposite of you and yet they're forced to follow you around. It's surprising not more of them go rogue, because that would be, awful. Imagine my reflection hates Steven Universe. The amount of Steven Universe I watch and talk about, like my reflection must be really angry. Why do you spend so much time talking about Steven Universe? Let's see. What else did I note down? Oh yeah, I liked the Mirror Police buddy system joke. So the Mirror Police can pass into Prime World, and how they do it is they wear these like gloves and masks. It's a really cool visual, actually. In fact, they're design-wise amazing. Like, let's just clarify that. They look really cool. The masks are really creepy. Their whole costumes and the helmets they're initially wearing are really creepy, and they've got like sanders to sand down the rogue reflections. Which, by the way, the fact that Mirror Police exist suggests it's not uncommon, just not common. Does that make sense? Yeah, I think that made sense. They're definitely active. So there you go. The Mirror 1-1's the one who calls them, which I thought was quite funny. But they have this joke where they can use this gloves and mask to go to the surface, to go to the Prime World. But it has on it, don't forget to use the buddy system. And later on, and it's not, no one says anything about it. It's just if you read, it's there. I only noticed on my second viewing, and it's written down. And then later on, the guy goes to escape, and he goes, "Hey, what about the buddy system?" They got to split up. I just thought it was such a fun thing, because the first time it happened I didn't really laugh at it. I was just like, that's kind of funny. They have a buddy system. That's kind of adorable. But the second time it was funnier to me because I'd seen that it was written down under the gloves. So it's like specifically when venturing into Prime World, have a buddy, don't go on your own. And then he leaves him. What about the buddy system? I thought that was great. I loved Atticus's pacifist by nature, warrior by necessity line, followed by 1-1 just being like, "I'm a robot," which was just not that one out of the park. That was very funny. Again, worth noting, while I'm frustrated at the lack of them using Atticus to do anything in this show, I like the character. He's a good character. He's funny. He's always the voice of reason. That's helpful, because 1-1 is a voice of chaos. So I totally understand his purpose, but 1-1 has had an episode focused on him. I don't see why Atticus hasn't had an episode focused on him. I feel like the last two are going to have to wrap up Tulip's storyline, but I'm really hoping the next one is Atticus focused. I'll be sad if it isn't. So yeah. But I genuinely have no idea what the next episodes contain, other than the names of them. But I would like to see Atticus get an episode before the season's out. Otherwise, it will feel like a bit of a waste. Let's see. Yeah, that idea as well that, the Mirror people feel, or this particular Mirror Tulip at least, she doesn't have a name. She's nothing at all. She doesn't feel like she's nothing at all. Is really dark, and I love that in the end she's free to go off on her own. But again, I do feel like she's likely to come back. I like they're pretty clever to set up what's she called, the multi-tool. It looks like a Swiss Army knife, but I guess they can't really call it that. It's a multi-tool. They set it up at the beginning of the episode, or at least remind you it exists. I think it has appeared in a previous episode. I could be wrong, but I think it has, and that it has a mirror built into it. That's something we see early, and basically how Tulip frees her mirror self in the end is by putting that mirror down, and they sort of brings her out through it. And there's this really cool thing where the guy goes to sand her down to nothing, and as she gets pulled through. 1 second. To sand her through, and they miss, and they cut off her hair, which I think, so she looks distinctively different. I mean, she immediately makes herself look different to Tulip, which I thought was a neat touch. And she takes off her glasses and lets down her hair, but then it gets shortened there. And I get, it's another reason I think that character is due back, because they've gone to the trouble of making her look different from Tulip. And I know it's kind of also symbolic for her character arc, like, oh, look, she's a different person. But they'd already done that by having her let her hair down and take her glasses off. They didn't need the secondary addition to making her look different by shortening the hair as well. So, you only need to make that point the once. So I think that's because they're looking to bring her back later on and do more with her, I think. I imagine she'll get a name of some sort, so I don't have to call her Mirror Tulip, because she doesn't like being called Tulip. It's not her name. Mirror Girl. So yeah, there you go. Episode ends on her seeing her number is 3 episodes left. Very excited. The only thing I wanted to add to this is I've been having a think. I was editing the episode, whichever episode I went on that mad tangent about how I think they're going to get to the end of the car and there's nothing there the other day. I was editing that episode like yesterday, and I was listening to myself say that as I stuck the images to it, and I was just like, actually, there's a good chance I'm wrong about that. Because there's another way you do it. So I've been defending that suggestion that they're going to get to the end and see that there's just nothing there. There's the front of the train, and now it just goes on like the track. You can just see the track stretching ahead and nothing on it. I have a feeling there is another way, because I said that the reason I think it's going to get to that is because you need the downbeat of failure. You know, that they've got it wrong and that there's no one actually at the front. But I've had another thought. The show is called Infinity Train. Maybe the train literally doesn't end, and they discover that it goes on forever, and it just loops round. Like it's some sort of circular dealy bop. Like like the track is just covered in train, top to bottom. So the very front of the train is nose up to the back of the train, but there isn't really. It's like a circle, and basically maybe they'll come back round to one of the first cars they go to. Oh, that could be harsh. That could be great. So she they keep going weeks and weeks and weeks, and then the moment of defeat is not them getting to the front and realizing they were wrong about their being a thing, but they end up in the first car they were in, the block car, the grid car, and the realization is actually the horror of no, this goes on forever. Then again, that's not really going on forever, is it? That's just a circle. It's called Infinity Train. It's just occurred to me that the idea that there is a front to the train seems kind of seems like they've maybe telegraphed that that's not the case. And now it's occurred to me there are other ways to give them that downbeat, so I'm not as convinced of that anymore, just because I now think there is that version of giving them a downbeat before the whatever happens to get them out of the situation. But yeah, there you go. That's everything for this one. Please join me next time for, what is the next one called? The Ball Pit Car. See, now that could very well be an Atticus episode. The Past Car and the Engine, which is the last two episodes, definitely will not be. I assume we're going to be barreling towards whatever our conclusion is for those two. But yeah, the Ball Pit Car is next. Thank you very much for listening. Come back tomorrow to hear me discuss that. And for just, in general, more Infinity Train chat. So yeah, comment down below, like, subscribe, all that jazz. Check out our other content if you've just found this. Steven Universe podcast, me playing through the two Steven Universe games, Save the Light and Unleash the Light. There's a ton of stuff on here. We did a breakdown. We did episode breakdown of Over the Garden Wall, something you might be interested in. But other than that, obviously come back tomorrow to hear me discuss the Ball Pit Car. That's been everything. We'll see you on the next one.